On this episode, we sit down with Matt Kepnes, otherwise known as Nomadic Matt, to chat about travel, Bangkok, twat packers, and if it's even possible anymore to be a successful travel writer.
That and a couple of stories that, frankly, you're not going to like. Well, welcome to life here on the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who stumbled out of Don Mueang Airport in 2001 and has been stumbling around Thailand ever since.
And I am Ivo Terra, an American expat living full-time in Bangkok since the beginning of 2016. Thanks for joining us here in the Big Mango.
Now, Ivo, before we jump into it, I want to start off on a down note. I want to bring us down tonight. But I do want to quickly mention a very good friend of mine named Eric Seldin, who very sadly passed away last week. Now, when you live in a weird city like Bangkok, which manages to attract all types of strange characters and eccentric people and weirdos, it's always nice when you can hang out with someone, quote unquote, normal. And that was Eric. He was a funny, warm, entertaining, and wise guy, and he always had a good story to tell from his decades traveling around Asia. Now, it's funny how when you live in a huge city, you naturally end up as part of a small community, whatever that community may be. But I'll bet that most of us listeners, and maybe you and me too, Ivo, we still don't make enough time in our schedules to see this said community, which is a bummer because that community makes living here worthwhile. Because when your family is on the other side of the world, that community becomes your family. So I hadn't seen Eric in a while, but I was always thinking next week. And I'm very, very sad that I will never be able to see him again. So listeners, no matter if you're an expat in Bangkok, Thailand, Asia, or anywhere else in the world, I want you to go out and see some friends this weekend. Shake hands, enjoy a beer, and reacquaint yourself with the community that makes it all worthwhile. So you can't see me right now, but I am raising a glass to Eric, who will be missed by a great many people. So, it was kind of a bummer of a week for me. Ivo, what's your experience with this? Have you known anyone while you're traveling or gotten to know anyone overseas who has passed on?
I've known a few people peripherally who have passed since I've been traveling around overseas, but my shtick is that I have kind of been traveling for a while, not necessarily overseas, but moved away from friends and family quite a lot. That's just kind of my shtick. So like you, I have found myself in situations where someone has passed and it's like, I want to say, damn it, I wanted to meet that person, one more time. In fact, it was the passing of someone back in America was one of the things that stirred me on to moving and getting around to seeing the world. He actually passed away. His name was Max, young kid, big in the community of Phoenix, and was vacationing in Rio and died unexpectedly, just fell off a mountain, to be really honest. What happened? It was like a terrible, tragic thing, taken away way too young in life. But he was out seeing the world, and I thought, okay. He's out seeing the world. I'm not seeing the world. And so maybe I should make some changes to make that happen. And so here I am. Thanks to that. So I didn't know Eric, but I know he was greatly missed because, my goodness, Twitter and Facebook seem to be filled with memorial attributes to someone from other people that I know here in Bangkok. So it was definitely a big soul.
Yeah, he was a great guy, and Bangkok is lesser for not having him here. So everyone, like I said, these communities are what make living overseas awesome. So embrace them.
Absolutely.
Spend time with them and appreciate them while you can, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Go say hello to that person you've been meaning to, because you never know when
That's
you're
right.
not going to be able to.
Right on. Okay. Well, from that, let's get into some more fun stuff. On this episode, we're actually really lucky because we are going to be chatting to one of the OG travel bloggers, the original gangsta travel bloggers, guy by the name of Matt Kepnes, otherwise known as Nomadic Matt. Now, Matt's one of the more visible and successful travel bloggers out there with all kinds of stories, tips, and reflections on travel on his site, nomadicmatt.com. He even has a New York Times best-selling book on how to travel the world on a budget. Now, he's a hard guy to pin down, but he recently came through town on his way to New Zealand, and he very kindly let me throw a few questions at him. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Nomadic Matt. All right. Well, we are very lucky to have a very famous travel blogger, one of the OG travel bloggers, a man by the name of Nomadic Matt, who happens to be passing through Thailand at the moment. So I was very lucky to be able to get him in a room with a microphone and an internet connection for a few minutes to get him online. So, Matt, welcome to the Bangkok podcast.
Thanks for having me, Greg. Good catching up with you a couple weeks ago, too.
Yeah, that was fun. You were in town for a few days, and we both had a night free, and we went out to Soy Nana. Not that Soy Nana. There's another Soy Nana that's a pretty cool little place.
Yeah, I didn't really know about it. So, I mean, I'm still learning something new about Bangkok, even after all these years.
Yeah, it's a constantly changing city. It's never the same place twice when you come back, and I guess it's one of the things that keeps it cool. Now, speaking of which, I kind of wanted to get a few words from you because I know that Bangkok is one of your favorite cities, and you travel a lot, more than anyone I know. So why is Bangkok one of your favorite cities? You're one of the few people who can literally go anywhere, but you keep coming back on a fairly regular basis. So what's up with that?
Well, a lot of it is sentimentality. I mean, Thailand itself is the first place I really went to independently as a traveler. And it was where I decided to quit my job and travel the world. So Thailand holds a very special place in my heart. But Bangkok, I mean, I was traveling around Southeast Asia, decided to learn Thai. I ended up staying to teach. I made friends. I got a girlfriend. I learned Thai. Like, this was like my home. I lived here for so long that a lot of it is just nostalgia and sentimentality. I got history here. But, it's a wild city. It makes me feel young. I'm not saying I'm old, but you always have that, like, I mean, look at our buddy Joe, travel writer Joe Cummings. He's still there at it. I feel like Bangkok is a city that like keeps you youthful in a way, and I always come back and feeling like Bangkok and I have never aged a day. Sure, there's more malls and more trains and things change, but like it's still that Bangkok, there's still Koh San Road and the dirty Soy Nana and the river's polluted and there's traffic all over the place, but there's street food everywhere and everyone's on the move and life is easy. People from all over the world, anything you want, you can get in Bangkok. And I mean, over the last few years too, the food scene has just become phenomenal. Really good international food scene. Yeah, it's just like it's always like we just said, it's always changing, but there's still a steadiness to Bangkok. It's still always Bangkok.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've put it in similar terms before to some people, and I say like I'm 42, sad as it is to admit that, but I don't act like the lifestyle I lead is not the lifestyle of a 42-year-old back in Canada, not as far as I'm familiar with anyway. I feel that Bangkok sort of lets you act youthful and gives you the opportunity to do youthful things. And for some reason, I feel like I'm still a 30-year-old back in Canada when I'm in Bangkok. I don't feel 42. And I think Bangkok somehow lets you get away with that, encourages it, and I guess hides it to a certain extent.
Yeah. I don't feel 36. I feel sometimes 16. I'm going out on Koh San Road and people are like, oh, where are you traveling to next? And, and I mean, of course, like sometimes when I'm there, it's like different because like I'm sitting there having a beer and like 10 people come up to me and I'm like, hey, are you Nomadic Matt? And it's like, yes. Cool. And I get a lot of free beer out of it. So, I mean, it's really cool. I mean, I was at a pub crawl a couple of nights ago in Krabi and somebody that was actually at one of my talks in the States was on it too, and that was fun. But I feel like when I'm going around Bangkok, like I'm still the 26-year-old that was backpacking the world and just decided to move here on a whim. It's like it's a different life here.
Sure is, yeah. And it's such a cool city. Now let's flip the coin a little bit. There's tons of stuff I don't like about Bangkok. What don't you like about Bangkok?
Oh my. Where to begin? No.
There's a lot, man. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. Like, no place is perfect, and there's a lot that pisses me off about living here. But it's outweighed by the good. But what kind of drives you crazy about getting around the city? Or
The traffic is crazy. I'm glad they're finally starting to put in more subway lines. But they also price out most of the lower class in the city. So that's no good sometimes. You're 40 baht to take a subway 6 stops when it's 40 baht for a meal. So I think in some ways it's great they have more subways, but also the people who need it the most are still stuck in traffic.
right.
The pollution, it seems like they just refuse to get a handle on pollution. Like they just gave up, just not gonna do it. Like it's just, in 10 years I've been coming here, the city has not become in any way green, in my opinion.
Well, I feel the need to step in here and say there's a difference between being green and being polluted, because Bangkok has one of the lowest per capita green ratings in the world. It's down to like 1.8 meters per person, which is ridiculous. In a place like Paris is like 25 meters per square meters per person. But that's bad. But I've read a lot of stuff over the past few years that says the pollution in Bangkok has actually gotten better. And I've also talked to a lot of travelers who are surprised how clean Bangkok is. And it always catches me a little bit off guard. And then I think like it could be a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. But I mean, to me, it's still not clean. It's gritty. I like that grit. I like clean air
Right.
too, but you go on the river and you take the little river boat taxis, and you can just like smell the water. Yeah,
Yeah, that. But and then let's not even talk about Sanseb Canal, where you close your mouth and eyes and pray to God nothing leaks in.
yeah. What else do I to like? There's always like a push and pull with being a foreigner in Bangkok. It's like you're never like really like accepted in a way. Like you can live here, you can speak the language, but like so many people are still trying to out to screw you. They always think of you as sort of the traveler, like, ooh, like you're just on holiday. And
Right.
I mean, I get the whole class and we're white Westerners and all that jazz, but sometimes it's just like annoying when you're like, dude, I live here. Like I know what the price is, I clearly am in a suit. Do I look like I just came from Coastline Road? Like, I mean,
Right. You're always going to be an outsider here. I could get citizenship and show people my passport, and I wouldn't be Thai. I would be like, oh, the Farang with the passport, the Thai passport.
Yeah, yeah. And don't get me wrong, like, I accept this city warts and all. It's just sometimes like you're just like can't just for like 1 second you like can I just get in one cab without having to fight for the meter? Like just like let me get in the cab and go. Like
Right.
what else don't I like? There's not a lot I don't like about the city.
Just the usual big city things.
Yeah. I wish there was more art in the city. Actually, if there's one
That's a good one.
good complaint, there's not a lot of good art museums or art exhibits in Bangkok. It's growing over the last couple of years. I've noticed a trend toward it. Small trend, but still more than I remember. But I would love to have like great museums.
That's a really fair criticism, I think, and it's weird because Thais are so creative, and you do get into these creative neighborhoods and shops and galleries and things like that, and it's like, man, there's just endless creativity here, but it's not like a cultural thing. Like a buddy of mine is traveling in New York right now, and he's sending pictures from Museum of Modern Art and the Tate Museum and all these things, and it's just the space and the money and the importance that's given to appreciating art doesn't really exist here. And you go to a place like Hanoi, which has art galleries on every corner, and they're not all the best art galleries, but it's there, it's everywhere, and it's hard to escape. But here it's sort of more like you've got to find it.
Yeah, I mean, just look at that Soy Nana we went to and all those inventive pubs, and they were doing that. They were having a wedding at the event space, and that waitress said was always changing into like exhibits and galleries.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's those isolated pockets, and Thais are super expressive and great in the arts. And I would say that leads me to my last criticism. Bangkok is a great city to like live, right? I think, but as a tourist, it's a terrible city because
Really?
there's not a lot to do, right? This is how I feel about LA, and my friends in LA describe it to me. Like, you have to go around LA is very difficult, you know. And there's a few like big ticket items you check off, but it's a city you live in. You know, you go running, you go to the cafe, you meet friends, like things happen, right? I
Right.
feel in many ways
Right.
that's like Bangkok. You know, most travelers transit in and out of Koh San Road. They check. There's a couple of big temples to check off. You check off the palace. You go downtown. You eat some street food, and you bounce. It's a much better city to live in. It's like Bangkok is an onion, and there's like so many layers to it that you have to peel back. You know, to find these small like subsoys in little
Right.
pockets. As a traveler, like you're not going to do that. It's just like, you know, whereas your buddy going to New York, there is, I mean, 50 pages of attractions and things he could quote unquote do, like things you can just like
Right.
take like part in, you know. Whereas, I mean, how many travelers are going to go out to like on Nut and all that area to go wakeboarding? I don't even know if that's still a thing, but my friends used to do it all the time on the weekends, you know. But
Even living here is a bit limiting too, because when friends who live here say things like, "Oh, my job's going to transfer me to Singapore. Oh, I'm going to be so bored because Singapore is so small." I kind of think, man, 90% of the people I know don't get further away than 1 kilometer from the BTS. Like almost the entire Farang population of the city lives within 1 kilometer from the train. And there's so much more to see, but it's just, you've also got to know where to go too. So yeah, I get what you're saying. And it's not an easy city to sort of stumble into things to do. You have to sort of be determined to find them.
yeah, exactly. You go to Paris, like we can spend 20 years in Paris and still not go to all the galleries and exhibits. I think I could,
Yeah, that's
I
right.
think I could
That's
see
right.
most of them in a week if I was here. But that's, you know, those are like
That's a good.
minor things. I think it's one of the, you know, most exciting cities in the world.
Yeah, I do too. So you publish a lot of guides and information and blog posts on how to travel cheaply. But I wanted to ask you, are your tips applicable to someone who wants to travel luxuriously? Like, I guess they're called flash packers.
Well, that
You know?
term is not used anymore
It's not. Oh God.
because pretty much everyone's a flash packer now. Like, you know, when that term came out a billion years ago, I don't remember.
I'm so
Oh, 08.
uncool.
I mean, I use it too. I have a blog post called "Are We All Flash Packers?" It was all like, you know, people wanting slightly better hostel accommodations and fancier dorms and plugs next to everyone's bed and Wi-Fi and all this stuff. No, that's all standard. I like to say, like, yes, I travel on a budget and am super frugal, but I think about value as I travel. Like, people always get caught up on the $50 a day number. Half the people say it's too high, half the people say it's too low, right? But I'm like, don't get caught up in the number. Think about getting value for your dollar. So, you know, I will stay at a Marriott and then eat street food,
Okay.
right? It's about the experience you are looking for. So I think whether you're a backpacker, flash packer, or, you know, roughing it as the Holiday Inn resort, I think it's about like what you want. And for me, like, what I try to tell people is, I mean, where you stay doesn't really matter. I mean, I do think you get more with people when you're outside of resorts, but maybe you want to sit at the resort. You know, I cashed in some points to go sit at the Marriott in Phuket. I'm going to spend 2 days there, and I don't want to be bothered to read books, sit by the pool, and write. But I'm going into that. I'm not going into that being like, oh man, I really want this authentic Thai experience.
Right.
So I hear within walking distance is some good seafood places. But
So it's all about balance.
it's all about balance and going in with your expectations. And also, you should always try to like learn the culture. I mean, we're having this while I'm in Phuket, and I just see some really rude travelers around. I mean, this is not to say that there are not rude travelers everywhere. My view is like, be nice to people, they'll be nice to you, and try to make an attempt at being respectful of the local culture
Right.
and trying the local food and respecting the customs and learning just thank you. And no matter what budget you're traveling with, I think that can be done, because that doesn't come down to how much are you spending. That just comes down to how do you want to experience the place you're going to. And I think you should experience the place you're going to as a traveler and someone who as a respectful visitor.
Right, and it's interesting you talk about that, because as we're recording this, this Logan Paul douche nozzle that's sort of come out has shown exactly how not to travel. He's the guy that saw the suicide victim in the forest in Japan and act like a total tool running around Tokyo. So I mean, you're an ambassador when you travel, or when you live here too. Like I'm an ambassador for whatever demographic someone believes me to be, whether it's a man, a white man, a Canadian dude, a foreigner. Like pick your demographic, whatever someone slides me into. But as an outsider, as a foreigner, I'm an ambassador for that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've been going around here and I speak a bit of Thai, and people are shocked because I'm probably one of the few tourists who make an attempt at even like remotely being like, "Hey, how are you?"
Really? There's not a lot of people that even bother anymore?
Oh, I mean, there are. I just mean in this part of Thailand, right? I'm in Phuket. There's a lot of Pakistan
Yeah.
tourists, a lot of Chinese tourists, lots of Russian.
Yeah.
Trust, like, I'm not saying people don't make an attempt. I'm just saying, like, in this little part, this little sliver of the travel tourism world I am currently inhabiting, I don't see it as.
Yeah, well, Phuket's not known as the sort of as the most authentically Thai, off the beaten path place you can go anyway. So it's not surprising, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, that Logan Paul guy. Oof, I mean, and then I saw that video you posted where he it showed a compilation of all his like silly antics in Japan.
What an idiot!
What a douche.
So, and speaking of different types of backpackers, what's your opinion of these the trend now? That's, I guess it's sort of peaked already, but these foreigners or backpackers who beg or sell postcards or things like that on the side of the street.
I'm very happy that I never got to see them in real life. I haven't
Oh yeah,
I haven't come across any in my travels. Busking has been a thing for forever, right? Or
right.
working when you travel, and I don't think anything's wrong with that. Play guitar on the street, I'll give you $5 or whatever, right?
Mhm.
But I think what you do and where you do it becomes an issue. If you're gonna go busk on the streets in Europe, whatever, but if you're gonna beg for money, and try to like busk in the downtown of Delhi, it's like, come on, man. Like, you can afford a plane ticket here, right? Like, your plane ticket is more than the per capita income of this country, right?
Right.
If you're gonna do like, all right, like you're gonna go work in a tourist area and you're gonna sell to other tourists, that's one thing. If you're gonna be like on the streets of Delhi asking the locals who are way poorer than you are to do it, I mean that's messed up. Like doing it in like Bangkok, like next to like someone who really needs it, and you're like, help me get home. It's like, well, maybe you should have thought of that before you went on a trip. I'm going to give my bot to this guy who doesn't have a home.
Right. Not you with the dreadlocks and the $900 phone.
Yeah, you get an iPhone, dude. Like, sell the iPhone, buy a plane ticket home. I'm not against working overseas or busking, but I think, at some point you're going to say, like, is doing it right here the most appropriate thing? And I think this whole bagpacker thing, as they call it, is the inappropriate thing. And I would love to. I mean, was kind of hoping I'd run into one just to give him a piece of my mind, just because,
Ooh.
I've been reading about it for a while and I haven't seen it.
Well, as we're winding down here, I just want to ask you a couple last questions here. Do you think it's still a feasible option for someone to start a travel blog as a way to make a living?
Let me throw that question back at you.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a feasible option for someone to open a restaurant to make a living?
Oh, zing. I guess it can be done. You just got to do it the right way.
Then you have got your answer. Of course, like when you're creating a blog, the street you're putting your quote unquote restaurant on has a lot more competition on it because, there's millions of blogs. But, I was talking to a friend who is also a blogger, and he met like the biggest travel blogger in India. He didn't know who she was. And we got this whole discussion about like, it's a big internet, right? I mean, we inhabit like the Western blogs, right? But I mean, this person in India is one of the biggest travel bloggers there and has millions of followers, right? Millions. And I don't know who it was. He didn't know who she was. And we forget, like, there are billions of people on the internet. And you could be super popular and have 50 million subscribers on YouTube, but you still don't have billions. There are billions out there who have never heard of you.
Right.
There's probably huge bloggers in other cultures that I don't know exist. And there are huge bloggers in other cultures that don't know who the heck I am, right? Because it's a big internet. So I think people get wrapped up in the fact that, oh my God, it's so saturated, but there's 6 billion people in the world, and they're all on the internet, and they're definitely not all reading everyone else's blog.
They're definitely not reading my blog.
I read it. That's all that matters.
Thanks.
I get a lot of people that ask me, like, should I blog my native language? It's such a small market. And I was like, of course. Like, don't blog in English just because there's more English speakers around. I'm not going to blog in Chinese. I don't know. Don't speak Chinese. Like, I can't write Chinese. And if I could, it would never convey the essence that a native speaker would have, right?
Right.
So don't like force yourself into this small fish. So in a big pond, like be a big fish in a small pond. Sure, Estonia doesn't have many people, but if you're the biggest blogger in Estonia, you're guaranteed to make a living doing it.
And continuing the metaphor, don't open up a burger joint next to McDonald's.
Exactly.
Nice. And last question before we get out of here. Do you have a 5-year plan, 10-year plan? Are you going to keep traveling indefinitely?
I don't know what my week plan is, let alone my 10-year plan. I mean, I'd like to settle down and have little nomadic mats. That requires me to be in one place a little bit more frequently. I mean, I'm never going to give up traveling, but I don't see myself quitting my job to travel the world for another year again. Like I'm not going to be on the road continuously.
Right on. Well, thanks for coming on the show, man. I know you're busy and I know you're probably tired from traveling and need a good night's sleep before you head off to look at hobbits and what have you in New Zealand. But it's great having you on the show, and I wish you the best of luck. Next time you're back in Bangkok, let's find a few more little soys to explore.
It sounds like a great plan. I'll add it to my 10-year master plan.
Cool, man. Good travels and take care.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
สถานีต่อไปนานา Next station นานา
So good conversation, Greg. I have known Matt, of Matt for years. We travel in the same circles because I technically am a travel blogger. I mean, I've spoken at a lot of travel blogger conferences and they've paid me to be keynote speakers at travel blogger conferences. So I guess, I'm the same thing, but here's the deal. Never met him.
Oh yeah. Well, he's out there. He's around.
I know. But again, back to what we're talking about at the beginning of the show. Not only for the friends that you currently have, make sure that you reinforce your connection with those communities. Go out of your way to connect with everyone you can in your community. And I am doing a terrible job obviously doing this. Thanks for reminding me of that again, Greg.
No worries.
Well, there's one thing you don't have to remind me of, and that is that it is time for everyone's favorite segment of the show, Love, Loathe, or Leave, where we look at one minor aspect of living in Bangkok and find out if it's something the two of us love about living in Bangkok, loathe about expat life, or if it's something we hate so much that it just might cause us to leave Thailand. This week, I have the honors, Greg, and it's the number 2.5.
2.5. I'm not a mathematician, so I don't know where you're going with this. What's 2.5?
Are you an environmental scientist?
No. Last time I checked, the fake degree I got from Khao San Road 16 years ago says I have a master's degree in film.
Do you have two eyeballs on front of your head?
Yes.
Have you noticed how terrible the atmosphere has been for the last several weeks?
Yes, because I also have a nose and a pair of lungs.
Oh my God, the pollution is atrocious here. Now, here's the reason I hate the number 2.5. When Sheila and I first decided Bangkok was home, let's not forget that my lovely wife, Sheila D., the reason we left Arizona in America was because a doctor said this place is too dry, dirty, and dusty for you. Dirty, it's polluted. That's with smog. It's dusty from the air, and it's too dry. So go somewhere else. So we checked the air quality in Bangkok. Guess what? All the numbers say pretty good. Well, that's because they're not tracking the super fine particles, those 2.5, I don't know, micron. I'm not sure what the measurement unit. I know it's 2.5. I'm not sure what it actually is.
I think it's micron.
2.5 micron. That's this shit, that hangs out in the air that doesn't show up, didn't used to show up on Thailand's monitoring bays. Now they've upgraded and said, oh, as it turns out, our atmosphere is terrible because the pollution is super high. So that's what I want to talk about, the pollution in Thailand, not just the number 2.5, but the fact that it is so terrible polluted. What do you think?
Well, the past few weeks have been unusually soupy, hot, heavy, humid, and sticky. And it's really, really gross. And I have noticed that I'm sneezing a little bit more often these days.
Yeah.
But it hasn't really affected me, most likely because I spend most of my time in an air-conditioned office.
That's true.
So, yeah, I haven't really noticed it, but you have been riding around, so you probably got it a lot worse than I do.
Yeah, I do. And I've got a new app called Plume, which is doing some measurements here, and it's showing me just how terrible the atmosphere has gotten to Bangkok. So if you had to pick, Greg, do you love it? Do you loathe it? Or do you want to leave because of it?
Are you talking about the general air quality in Bangkok or this specific pollution right now?
Well, this specific pollution, and I guess just the fact that Bangkok is becoming a dirtier city.
Yeah, I mean, I loathe it.
Yeah.
I loathe it because it's obviously detrimental to everyone here, but I've never really found it that bad when people say, oh, the pollution's so terrible. Oh, you go out for a run and you come home and you blow your nose and it's brown. I've never found it that awful. And I ride my bike a lot. I will give you this past few weeks has been really unusually awful, but I loathe it, but not bad enough for me to want to leave.
Guess what?
What?
I'm leaving.
This is the first one. Someone actually hates something about Bangkok so much that they're leaving. Now, you're not joking.
I'm not joking. I'm not necessarily leaving because of the pollution, but yeah, here's the reality, kids. My time being the co-host on the Bangkok podcast is coming to a close.
What? This is the first I'm hearing about it.
Nice try. You knew. Yeah. So we'll talk more about this later, but wanted you guys to know, like, as soon as it was possible, that yes, indeed, I will be leaving my post here as co-host of the Bangkok podcast. Not next week. I'll be back for next week's show, and not immediately, but in the very near future, there will be some changes, and we'll be talking about those more in an upcoming show. Right?
That is correct. Yeah, it's a total bummer, but you're one of those young kids whose feet are itchy, and you've got the world left to see. Not like me and the fogies over here who have done their traveling and have settled down.
Yeah.
But yeah, you are going to be leaving. Not right now, like you said. We've got We got a fistful of episodes left to do.
Yeah.
But you're leaving. However, the good news is that the Bangkok podcast is not. We will continue on with season 3, and the fine details have yet to be ironed out.
Right.
But I think maybe next week we're going to go into more detail with explaining what's going to be happening and talking about your next steps.
So do not unsubscribe. If you have not yet supported us on Patreon, please do that, because as Greg has said, the Bangkok podcast will continue. That's happening. So if you have not yet given us your support on Patreon, now is a good time to do it. And here's why. The patrons know all about it already. We recorded a bonus episode, as we do every single week, and told our patrons, our most valuable audience, in great detail what is happening. You guys won't find out for another week, not because we hate you, because we're out of time. You see, it's a timing situation. The patrons with the full episode, they get plenty of time for us to talk about things like that. So you missed the story. So if you want to know now before next week, all you got to do, go to Patreon, sign up, support us you can support us at any level that you want. But if you support us at the $2.50 level, that's like 80 baht, people. Come on. You'll get full access to the bonus show that we just recorded, and you can hear what is really prompting me. It's not the pollution that's going to cause me to move out of Bangkok and see where I am headed to next. But you got to go. You got to go to patreon.com/Bangkok podcast and get signed up over there. We'd appreciate it. And also you'll know what's happening sooner.
And I'll tell you what, I'm going to make a promise for me, and also I'm going to make a promise on your behalf too, Evo. We're at 49 patrons as we record this show. Patron number 50, who supports us at least the 250 level, we're going to send you a postcard. How's that?
Well, there you go.
A handwritten, signed postcard, maybe a couple of postcards, who knows? But the 50th patron will be a big celebration worthy of at least a postcard. So that'll be pretty cool.
I have a few extra postcards laying around, so we have everything we need. We just need one thing, and that's your money.
Well, even if you don't sign up to be a patron, I would still like to say thank you for listening to the Bangkok podcast. If you want to reach out and send us an idea or just want to say hi, head over to the contact page on bangkokpodcast.com, or you can reach out directly to me on Twitter, where I am BKK Greg.
If you want to bitch about the fact that I'm leaving, you can do that directly to me at Evo Terra. Or if you want to send a message to the show, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're online, all those places at Bangkok Podcast. We're great about responding to your comments, answering your questions, and generally spreading around the heaps of praise you lump all over us. For Greg Jorgensen, I still am Evo Terra. We both, the two of us, right here, will be back next week with more stories of our lives lived in the City of Angels right here on the Bangkok Podcast. Chokti krap. I'm tempted to say something about sandwiched between two pieces of bad news, but I want to make sure that I don't say it like that. Okay, I get it. Yeah.